Hey, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone is well. It's a beautiful day. Getting this started. When you start logging in, you see there's a little bit of wait time. Just giving everybody who's going to log on an opportunity to do so. We have some interesting things to discuss this morning. Perhaps you're able to see in the description or in the title, we're going to be talking about the most costly things. And if you're logging in, do me a favor, post in the comments, because I'm still trying to figure out why I can't see people's comments in this platform I'm using in real time in this account. So if you could, that'd be a great help. Get this out to others who are beginning to log in. You can share it, and we'll get it cracking in just about a minute. We'll be right back. Remember, go ahead and shout yourself out in the comments. You can post reactions as we begin to get started. Got a little over a minute. Just letting some people log in. All right, everybody, good morning. Welcome to the broadcast for this morning. As you might have seen in the comments or in the description, that this morning we're going to be delving into this topic of the most costly things. And I know, for this turn up generation and those that are, you know, thinking about material gain, I'm not saying anything is wrong with wanting things and having ambitions. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm not even trying to infer that in any way. It's okay to want whatever it is you want. So, but for others of us that are living on a higher level, you'll see how we put some of this into its proper perspective. I'm pretty sure we could agree on a lot of what we're going to touch on today, and it's okay where we don't. So we're going to be talking about these most costly things and drilling down into some of these things that tend to limit us, deter us, inhibit us, internally and personally, and sometimes just absolutely derail us. Okay. And many of those times, in each of those instances, these things are happening while we are totally unaware. Okay. Just kind of oblivious to the fact that we're not being our best. Sometimes we're not being our most authentic self. So we're gonna get right into it in just 1 second. All right. So I'm Rashiid K. Coleman, your friend, the enlightened entrepreneur. We'll talk about that a bit further at some point. I'm going to reserve that for an episode or podcast episode with a really, really good friend of mine by the name of Jerry Thompson. Okay. You can look him up. You would do yourself a favor to look up his page. I believe his full ID is Jerry A. Thompson Jr. Of Jack World. And so I want you all check him out. He has a podcast that he just started not too long ago. It's entitled The Pivot Play. And so, check him out. Shout out to Jerry, one of my good friends. I don't know if any of you have the kinds of friends that if you were in a jam in some remote location in the world somewhere, this is one of those people, one of the very few people in my life that I'd call, and I know he'd do anything in his power to be there. So just a true friend for 20 plus, 25 plus years. All right. So check him out. Okay. All right. Now, for the subject at hand today, I'm praying that this is going to be beneficial to a number of you. Again, if you're logging in, post to the comments. I'm still trying to figure out why I can't see your comments, because I would love to be able to interact with you all while we're doing these. Again, for me, it's not about attention. It's not about likes. It's not about follows. It's about impact. I'm hoping to make some form of impact. So, I want to say right now, I'm really dressed down for this week's entry, because quite honestly, I'm really supposed to be off the radar today. It's my beloved's, my wife. Her birthday is today, and but she decided to go into work, and so I said, well, there's some things that we have planned that I won't get into until a little later this afternoon now. And I said, let me maximize the usage of this time this morning among the other things that I can get done. But she's the love of my life. And, I'm sure she's having a fantastic morning. Family and things were, wishing her happy birthday first thing. So huge shout out to Sheila, my wife, and praying that this day will certainly be memorable for many reasons. Okay. All right. So the most costly things. So I know many of us, there are shows out here where people, they travel the world to eat the most expensive meals, the most costly meals. Like, there are people who show off their collection of cars, the most costly cars. There are people who show the most costly jewelry. There are people who are even sneakerheads, the most costly fits or the most costly sneaks in the world. That's not what we're here to talk about this morning, okay? This has nothing to do with acquisitions. It has nothing to do with what you may want to run out to your local mall to purchase. It's not about what you may intend to put under your tree if you're into that thing for Christmas, right? Now, the most costly things, and this will just be a very compressed and condensed list of these most costly things, and the first of which is poor conditioning. Poor conditioning. That is one of the most costly things that any one of us could have in our possession. Okay, poor conditioning. It means like the way our internal hard drive has been formatted. It means the operating system with which we have been loaded. The things we witnessed, the things that shaped our personal orientations, the things that influence us daily, some of which we're conscious of, some of which we might not be conscious of. But they're shaping and influencing how we choose, the decisions that we make, the speed in which we make those decisions, the soundness of those choices and decisions. Like, Poor conditioning is extremely costly because that operating system is always at work, even if it's operating in the background. Okay, so I guess I should put a disclaimer out here that most people watching this, a lot of times we're on here talking about business or financial matters. We're talking about the economy at large. But today we want to dig a little deeper and take a look within, because quite honestly, no matter what's taking place in the world around us, what's going on within us is far more important, because the world around us simply reflects what's going on in us. Okay. And certainly your piece of the world, your sphere of influence, what you call life, the journey you're on, that is definitely being directed, guided, impacted, and influenced by this thing of conditioning. Okay. And some of us, our poor conditioning came from the environments in which we grew up, and that could start in the household, which again, that doesn't have to be a demonizing idea or statement. I know a lot of times we rush to judgment in our bloodthirstiness, and we feel like we have to blame, we have to accuse. No, sometimes the truth is just we grew up in dysfunctional environments. Okay. I always include myself because I'm not here to talk at anybody. All right. Even if it's not my personal experience or situation. Listen, there are things that go on in many people's families. Not everyone, right? There are some very whole and healthy families. So I think we need to accept that and embrace that. And the fact that there may have been some dysfunction in our families because things didn't go in accordance with the perfect portraits that parents paint for their families, for their children's lives. It's okay. These things happen. So some of this is just we grew up in environments where the conditioning was poor. Whether the conditioning, we didn't, so watch this, some of the soft conditioning. Some of us didn't grow up in literature-rich environments where there were books around, where there was a library in the house, even if it was small. See, some people, they'll take a look around their house and they'll say, oh, I don't have a library, I just have a bookshelf. That's a library. Okay. A library is just a place where information is consolidated and stored and made readily available for others to access that information. Okay. And by way of books and magazines and journals and all kinds of stuff. Okay. So you may have grown up with a library in your home, and because all you saw was a bookshelf, you didn't understand that was perhaps a gateway to an expanded world. Okay. At least to an expanded world view. So, some of us, we didn't grow up around that. Some of us never saw our parents or the people we love reading for fun. Some of the language we heard about learning and educating oneself was all negative. That it was a headache. It was killing us. You know what I'm saying? Like some of our environments, when people graduated from certain levels of education, they were like, "Whew, I'm glad that's over. I'm never doing that again." And it's just, that's poor conditioning. Okay. Again, you don't have to wear that like a limestone about your neck. Like you just need to toss yourself away. It is what it is. Okay. It's okay. Here's the point: is when we realize it, when we come to an awareness that we've suffered from poor conditioning, are we ready to do something to alter it, to change that conditioning? All right. And certainly to change or to limit its impact and influence on our lives. Okay. So some of us, we had poor economic conditioning where we lived in environments that life was a struggle. Okay. And we thought that the universe was founded upon scarcity, that all there is lack and struggle, and then all of the fallout from that struggle. poor conditioning. Some of us grew up hearing angry statements, from those that we love, those who raised us, those who were guardians, because we live in situations where not all children grow up with their parents, or they don't grow up with their biological parents. So, in some of those environments, when children asked for money, it was like, what do you think? We got a money tree out back? Again, poor conditioning, because that statement was often not self-generated. That's often just a perpetual cycle of this conditioning. Okay. So some of us, we learn poor financial habits. Some of us learn to beat the system, to get over, because of poor conditioning. All right. And it's very costly. Poor conditioning is very costly because, again, many times it's just a part of our operating system. It's just a part of the BIOS of our lives. It's just a part of the language and the data that's moving things in whatever direction in our lives. And because we're rather unaware of it, because it's just the habit of our experience that we call life, then we rarely ever challenge it. We rarely ever think, man, this isn't really servicing me that well. Man, when you, especially now in this, access to the world, this portal to the world by way of these smartphones, for many people, we see this world. We see how other people are able to live, or they appear to live, and it incites something in us. And sometimes it's inciting some things that are not altogether positive, okay, or good for us. But again, poor conditioning, it shows up in so many ways, right? Our disposition towards learning, how we relate to one another in relationships, what platonic relationships look like, what romantic relationships look like. Poor conditioning can be very costly. So my challenge to some of you that might be watching this right now live, or if you see this at some point later, is I'm hoping to inspire you to take a look at yourself, to get silent and still enough to do some introspection, right? Do the personal inventory and ask yourself, at whatever age you are and at whatever stage you might perceive yourself to be in life, are you there by design, or did you drift there? And whatever the circumstances, don't stop at finger wagging at yourself or at your life, or starting to play the comparison and contrasting game. You don't have to go down that route, but do some introspection so that you can arrive at a full awareness of, I do have some poor conditioning from which I might be suffering. It might be the reason that I've failed to launch in life. That it might be the reason I feel stuck. This poor conditioning. It might be the reason that I choose to thrive at the things at which I'm good, but those things at which I'm really good and where I am thriving, they don't provide me the life that I truly desire and intend. You see what I'm saying? And when I say provide me the life, I'm not just talking about our economic status. No, there's so much more to our life's experience, okay? For some of us, life is not its best because we're having real difficulty relating with our children. You see what I'm saying? If you're a parent, or some of us as an adult child, to your parent, you might be, suffering in that relationship because the parents or the guardians or the older siblings, they don't really want to see you as an adult. So there's all this butting of heads and fighting and contending and striving because, we're being passively aggressive, or we're trying to avoid confrontation because we think all confrontation has to end up in conflict. No, it's poor conditioning. Okay, so I hope to inspire you to do the introspection, challenge yourself to find out at least for clarity's sake, I might be suffering from some poor conditioning. And this is the way it's showing up in my life. And I would really, really go a step further to challenge you to, as you do this introspection, exercise the discipline to think it out on paper. On paper. I mean, that means that you're going to have to, as I'm reaching in my desk, you know, some of you going to be like, man, this dude is a relic, right? I'm getting ready to upset the apple cart. You see this? These still work. It's an actual pen. All right. I have legal pads all over. I have journals in which I record my thoughts, my ideas, the things I'm coming clear on, things that the scriptures, you know, are illuminating for my life and in the towards the renewal of my mind. Like, but I use these a lot. I write a lot. Okay. Write it out so that you can read back what it is you find. Okay. And don't delude yourself. Don't fool yourself, because I promise you, fooling yourself when it comes to clarity about self, it only leads you into further sorrow. Okay. Further calamity. All right. So check that out. That's the first, maybe it's not the most costly thing of the most costly things. I didn't put these in a list of priority or, you know, impact, but we can start there. All right. Because I believe the mind is very key to how we experience our journey. All right. Next on the list of the most costly things that we need to consider, drill down into, is a closed mind. Whew. A closed mind. Oh, man. A closed mind. It's been said. I don't know who said this first. It's not my original idea. But it's been said the most costly thing anyone can ever own is a closed mind. And I'm going to tell you, a closed mind is costly because nothing of value can come in. No new ideas of which can help us to frame out and live our most ideal life, a new life perhaps. No new outlook or perspective when the mind is closed. And when we speak of a closed mind, it really infers or implies that this is a mind that believes it knows enough. See, some people, they let themselves off the hook because they're like, well, I'm not a know-it-all. I know I don't know it all. But the mind is still closed because they believe they know enough. I'm good on that. I know enough. I don't need that. I'm good at this. I have this. This is enough. When the reality is emotionally on pins and needles all the time. That's why anxiety is rising. That's why diagnosed clinical depression is on the rise. And the age ranges they're becoming younger and younger. Okay? And there's many dynamics to that, but I promise you, a closed mind, when we've made certain decisions with finality and we never explore the possibility that what we already know could be limited, that what we already know could be absolutely wrong. A closed mind, it's a very costly thing. Let me tell you why a closed mind experientially becomes extremely costly. Because a closed mind can't even identify what it's missing. Because here's the reality. Sometimes people close their minds because of what they believe they're trying to protect themselves against, of what they're trying to keep out. Do you see this? Okay, watch this. Another danger, see, that's one aspect of it, but another danger to the closed mind is it retains what's already in. And for some of us, what's already going on between our ears isn't good for us. For some of us, what we've convinced ourselves of about ourselves, it's not good for us. So having a closed mind, it means that we're often uncomfortable with, that we're not ready to challenge where we are and to challenge the possibilities. All right. Which quite honestly segues us into this next on the list of most costly things. And the next thing is what Dr. Willie Jolly calls possibility blindness. Possibility blindness. Man. Possibility blindness is a very costly thing. Just like with a closed mind, there are some of us, we are so negative. We are so scared. We are so narrow in our vantage point. We are so limited in the breadth of what we know that we're blind to the millions and perhaps billions of possibilities that exist. And we're also, because we're blind to these innumerable possibilities, we're also blind to and unaware of just how close many of these possibilities are to us. But because we've already determined that, no, this is what I'm good at, this is what I do, this is the way I go about things, that we can't even see, watch this, that many times the world is constantly doing something that many people are refusing to do. The world around us is constantly changing. The world around us is constantly evolving. The world around us, the universal law is that everything builds upon itself. Do you see this? And for some of us, the tragedy is that we can't see when these changes are occurring. We feel like the only thing that change represents is the threat to what I have already deemed to be my life, my way of thinking, my perception and perspective, my good, if you will. Okay? So watch this. In that, only being able to perceive and embrace the threat that these possibilities and that the change represents to us and perhaps for us, we can't even see that these changes are teeming with and laden with possibilities to enjoy a life that far exceeds what we may have even imagined before we caught that glimpse of the possibilities. Do you see this? There are some of us who you probably have convinced yourself that because of where you come from, because of how difficult life has been, because of the losses that you've experienced. All right, I'm getting ready to go here. This is going to be a little violent, so brace yourself. Some of us, we even blame God for the way we feel about life. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm not here to tell you that you don't have a right to feel the way you feel or to feel the way you want to feel. What I'm saying is sometimes we need to explore how we feel to see if what we feel is really real. And some people, I know people, they'll want to play semantics with me now, and they'll say, well, Sheed, who are you to say what's real and what isn't? I'm not here to say what's real or not. I'm saying that you, if you're in this situation, you might need to explore if it's really real or if you're just in your feelings. Because sometimes, although our feelings are palpable, although our feelings are salient, although our feelings seem tangible, like it seems like this is the only thing it could be, I'm here to tell you, when we change, our feelings about things often change. Do you see this? So it's important. Like, it's a very costly thing, possibility blindness. And for some of us, with the way that the world is changing, with the way that this nation called the United States of America has changed and is changing, with the way that the economy has changed and is going to be changing, you do not want to suffer from possibility blindness. You do not want to suffer from a closed mind. Because just like the last entry in our vlogs or our Regal moments, you know, for some of us, we're going to wait until it is just too late to do anything that could really preserve us and our generations. We're going to wait until it's too late, and waiting it's going to be a huge mistake. And I'm telling you, everybody already sees it. We can feel it, we can see it, we can see the reports about it. If you do your own homework, you're going to find the same thing. There is great financial change coming. And I mean systematically. I don't just mean in a few people's dollars and cents in their bank accounts. You know, I'm not talking about a few jobs in this job market. No, I'm talking about nationally and globally. So this is not the time to be blind to possibilities. This is not the time to suffer with these costly things like a closed mind. Okay. All right. Next thing on the list of the most costly things: an unreasonable mistrust of people, places, and things. An unreasonable mistrust. Now, notice, everybody who knows me knows I'm very deliberate about words, right? Certainly the words I use. We need to understand mistrust and distrust are related, but quite different. Okay? So to mistrust someone is to not trust them because you don't know them. You don't know anything about them. You don't have a frame of reference. Okay? To distrust someone is the lack of trust one has in someone you know because of your experience with them. Okay? So someone who has consistently disappointed you, not kept their word, you'd be distrustful of any promise they attempted to make you. Okay? But there are people that when you don't know them, where we can be unreasonably mistrustful. All right? Because we don't have that frame of reference. Watch this. We'll tend to believe that everyone is guilty until proven innocent. That everyone has an angle. That everyone's out to get us. Okay? And that would be a huge mistake. It becomes a very costly disposition. It's a very costly thing. It's a costly outlook. So we have to be calculated. All right? We have to be a lot more present in and aware of mistrust. I think it's prudent to want to vet people, to want to see if a person's behavior continues to line up with the language or the verbiage that they show up with. Okay? But an unreasonable mistrust, some of us, we have rejected the help that God has sent us because some of us, we're so negative about people we don't know. And some of us, we've been prayerful. Lord, send me the resources. Some of us, we've been prayerful. God, send me the people I need. Lord, give me a new circle of friends. Put me in a new environment of influence. And the God's like, I've sent them time and again. You keep rejecting them because you don't know them. Unreasonable mistrust can be extremely costly, because here's what you need to know. Anywhere we're going in life, if we're going to build anything of note, anything sustainable, anything that we're going to be able to pass along generationally, you need to know it's going to involve the relationships we develop. The relationships. Now we got to be, I didn't intend to go this route, but here's what's key about this. Make sure you create relationships and that you're not just creating associations for the purpose of leverage. Using people. Let's just break it down, get really raw with it. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of opportunism in the world. There's a lot of chameleon type people. They've learned and mastered the art of saying the things they believe you need to hear so that they gain control, that they can make the connection. Do you see this? So once you're aware that that is possible, then you just have to understand. Here's the reality I've learned. This is not my original idea. I learned it. I think I read this in a book. I'm horrible at this. I read so many different books. I do so much research. I'm often forgetful about where it came from. But I'm always going to make sure I credit someone else said this idea first. Okay. And the idea is this. There is no interest in the world outside of self-interest. Everyone wants to know. Even if you read the Bible, you're going to see Jesus understood clearly everyone has an agenda. Everyone wants something. He was not upset with his disciples when they asked, Jesus, we gave up everything to come and follow you. What's in it for us? Everyone has that question because no one wants to be the donkey. That's what I call it. Let me tell you, I've been made the donkey so many times in my life by some sources that just totally rock my world. Do you see this? And then you just got to decide one day, because we teach everyone how to treat us. You got to decide one day that you're more valuable than being the donkey. That you don't have to do it or be there or put up with certain treatment or rejection at times just because. Now, you don't have to be the donkey. Okay. So I say all that. We have to be measured. We have to be balanced. It might make sense to give people the benefit of the doubt upon introduction, upon meeting, and then just be aware. Okay? Keep the receipts for as the relationship is developing, and always be honest with yourself. Because some of us, we project our own personal standards, moral values, ethical compass on others, and we end up getting hurt because good people tend to presume everyone else is good too. Okay? So, but that's very costly and unreasonable mistrust. We got to give people and things and new environments a chance, okay, before we're trying to metamorphosize the new thing into the old thing. That doesn't work. All right. All right. Next thing. This is key. This is a very costly thing. This is among the most costly things in life. All right. We're doing good on time. We got a little bit more time. The next thing is isolation that we misconstrue for independence. Yes, I said that. It'll only sting for a minute. Some of us, in the name of independence, have isolated ourselves. And then we choose to be angry at the world and angry at those who wanted to be there with us and for us. You know, with no guile in their hearts. You know, with no intention of mistreating or using. We just isolated ourselves. Sometimes it's because we've suffered so much disappointment in relationships that we tap out on people. You know, we're often those people that soon as we see a certain thing, we hear a certain thing, immediately they're canceled. We delete them from our phone. We delete them off our social media. That's it for them. I know how that looks. I'm here to tell you, if you intend to do anything sustainable, if you intend to build anything of note, I promise you, independence is understandable, but isolation, it's a death warrant. If you're so good that you're better than everybody else in every way and no one can hold you accountable, you've isolated yourself. If everybody in the world around you is wrong and a demon and a villain and they're the enemy, you've isolated yourself and you are going to suffer for that. So it's very costly. Independence, okay. There's room for that, right? To want to do things on our own at times, for ourselves. Watch this, for the purpose of being able to take pride in what we've done for ourselves. I get that. But isolation, it's a death warrant. Because here's the key. We say these things and we kind of diminish the power of these statements because we make them cliche. The saying goes, the old adage says, no man, no person is an island unto themselves. Well, I'm here to tell you something. Anyone who lives on an island will tell you, if you're on that island and there is no way for you to get fresh drinking water on the island, you find out just how horrific a death warrant that isolation is. It's beautiful. Everyone would love to visit there under the right conditions, but no one would want to stay there because it's not sustainable. Do you see this? Everything and everyone needs everything and everyone. Do you see this? Whether it's directly or indirectly, we are all interdependent as a human race. And people who don't understand that, they make it bad for the human race. People who don't understand that, they make it extremely bad for themselves, even if they can't see it initially. Okay? So, you want to make sure it's okay to strive for independence, as long as we understand independence must collaborate with interdependence at some very important and strategic moments in our lives. Okay? Because again, isolation, straight up death warrant. All right. The next thing on the list, selfishness. It's very costly. If everything is about us, I promise you, you're going to find yourself in isolation. If nothing can move except it benefits you alone or at the expense of others, you're going to be by yourself. And that's even with a bunch of people around. Let me tell you something. Selfish people, they can't be trusted because they're always willing to do something at the expense of everyone else because they tend to be the only ones that matter. Okay? So, again, most of us, We'll hear this, we'll see this, people will agree, they'll affirm what's being said, they'll even excitedly post comments, about how much they agree. But some of us never ever ask ourselves, am I selfish? Is it me? Am I in this state? See, not so that you throw yourself away, not so that you beat yourself down, not so that you flog yourself, to disfigurement. No, that's not what this is about. It's about coming clear, right? Is it me? Am I the one who only cares about me? Right? We didn't even get to narcissism. Now I'm talking about selfishness. Where everything in life is a competition. Just competing with everyone about everything. It just shows there's something. Selfish people have to really take a look deep inside and ask themselves, why am I not okay with celebrating others, with considering others? If you're in, special romantic relationships, whether you have a girlfriend, a boyfriend that you're really close with, you're married, selfishness will eat away at the foundation of any relationship. And let me tell you why. Because watch this. Because there are many people who choose selfish people and then they're passive. So then they fear confronting the selfishness, calling it out. Do you see this? And then it just creates this revolving door of chaos and dysfunction in the relationship. So selfishness is extremely costly. Because watch this. Because we never get to the full benefit and advantage of relationship with others. I'm going to tell you something. At the end of this journey, because of the service that I provide, the role that I provide in my service and ministry, I get to talk to people at a time in their lives when they're preparing themselves for transition out of this physical plane into going back to the source, who is God, right? And I'm telling you, when we reach the end of this road on this side of eternity, guess what everyone thinks of? It's people. It's relationships. It's not bank accounts. I'm just telling you. It's not bank accounts. It's not cars. No one ever talks to me about that stuff. They always, and not always this, but they always speak of relationships in some way, shape, or form. And many people, they speak of relationships with regret. They wish they had done better by some people. They wish they had made certain relationships right. Watch this. They wish they had done it because they hadn't done it yet. And now they're at a place where most times it's just too late. So address it. Understand selfishness. I don't know what's driving that oftentimes, but you need to know it's limiting, it's hurting, it's derailing, it's deterring only us if we are selfish. Okay? And then finally, and this is not like really saving the best for last, but one of the other most costly things that any one of us can contend with is cowardice. 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 Yes, I said it. Being afraid to be. Being afraid to try. Being afraid to finish. Being afraid to launch. Being afraid to make a decision. Cowardice. Being afraid of honesty with ourselves, with others, with embracing what we truly want in this life. Cowardice. It's extremely costly. Cowardice. The cowardice that leads to us being unfaithful, because we can't be honest about where we are in some things, and that we never intended to be faithful, perhaps. You see this? Cowardice. Cowardice to admit to ourselves we're not living up to our full potential. Cowardice to admit that we're suffering from some things that our parents said to us when we were children, or things they didn't say that we wish they had said, and we were emotionally and psychologically ill-equipped to communicate that to them when we were that age. And now there's some parents who have already transitioned, and these grown children are still suffering within because they don't know how to unpack and let go of some of this useless energy. Yeah, I said useless. See, you're not useless. The fact that you feel that way, it's not necessarily useless, but I promise you, if you're suffering from it, it's useless. If it's bringing nothing but sorrow, it's useless. And if it's paralyzing you from being your most authentic self, from being who God predestined for you to be and purpose for you to be, from doing what you were intentionally sent here to do and complete, then it's a problem. It's a problem. Do you see this? If you aren't willing to, at the appropriate times and in the appropriate ways, put it all on the line to realize what it is you envision, suffering for cowardice, and cowardice becomes extremely costly. You see this? See, everybody, we live in this hero worship culture because there's a piece of some of us that identifies with the heroism, the heroic behavior, right? And quite honestly, heroism doesn't look like blue tights with a red and yellow S on one's chest with a red cape. That's not what heroism really looks like, okay? Heroism doesn't look like an Amazon woman who, by the way, doesn't necessarily look Amazon in any of the representations. That's for another episode, I guess. But it doesn't look like an Amazon woman who's athletically fit and beautiful by the world's estimation and like a god and can repel bullets with her wristbands and has a lasso of truth. And hey, listen, that's not what heroism looked like. Like, heroism looks like that single mother who is raising her children the best way she can and is not compromising standards that are going to prove to the best for her children. You know, how she selflessly continues to put them first. That's heroism. Heroism is a man who was counted out, but every day he gets up and he shows up for life. He wields his responsibility in the best way he can. That's heroism. That he doesn't take the easy way out. That he doesn't abandon that for which he's responsible. That's a hero. See, we've been duped into believing that, you know, heroes wear uniforms and they make, 8, 9 figures. Yes, 9 now. Yes, that's real. Okay. But we've been deluded and deceived to believe these things. So those are just some very costly things. I hope this helps in some way. You get to decide how they're going to impact your life, if they have been up to now, and you get to decide if they're going to continue to be an issue or a challenge for you as you continue to move and grow and evolve in your life. All right. This is why I just felt that I woke up in the wee hours of the morning, as Frank Sinatra would put it. And yeah, I listen to Frank Sinatra sometimes. I love good music, no matter. And anywho, I hope this helps. Hope you intentionally make this day fantastic, that you make it fantastic on purpose simply because you can. And like I said, I'm planning to do a podcast with my very good friend Jerry Thompson. We've spoken about it, and in that one, I could tell you now. And Jerry probably he's going to probably hit me up about this, but I could tell you now. I want to discuss something that he and I have been discussing for years. I mean, this is literal for years. Okay, because it's a very complex issue. All right, and we're going to talk about maybe even for next week. I don't know. I'll see what his schedule is like. But we're going to talk about, can someone achieve the highest levels of social success playing it straight? So we'll bring you, we'll come back with that. I think that's going to be grounds for a very interesting discussion. And I think it's something that a lot of people have thought about, are thinking about, and maybe need a little bit of help and clarity working through those dynamics. All right, so listen, God bless. Love you all. The rest of my day is off the radar. As I told another of my good friends, Dwayne Cuff, I was supposed to be today for my wife's birthday. But now, officially, that's what it's going to be. Okay? God bless. I love you all. Thanks for tuning in. Again, if you saw this on YouTube, hit the like button. Subscribe so that you continue to get all these updates. If you see this on Facebook Live, hey, share it with somebody. If you think it's impactful, that it's good information, that it's helpful in some way, that it's valuable, then share it with somebody. And again, always be regal. Peace.